Hello, dear friends. Once again, it's Zion Holy City, the IT guy. Today, I'll be answering the question 7 of the Southwest Regional Mock 2K20 ICT paper 2. Let's just dive in and just start pumping the things. Okay. 7 Romans 1. Describe the following terms as used in database management system. A. Attributes. Attributes are just characteristics of the entity. An entity can be a teacher, can be a student, or any object in the universe whose characteristics are to be taken. So let's consider this example as we say the characteristics of an entity. Let's consider you have been asked to create a database in a certain school. So the database here will be your school. The entity in your school will be, let's just consider a teacher and a student. Now, what's the attribute, which are characteristics of the entity? So what are the characteristics of the teacher and of the student? For the teacher, you have the teacher's ID, the teacher's name, the teacher's subject, and the teacher's class. For the student, for the school, for the student, I beg your pardon, we have the student's ID, the student's name, the student's address, the student's subject, and the student's date of birth. Using the ER model, entity relationship model, you can still be arranged in this form. You have the entity here, teacher, student, then you have the characteristics here, called the attributes. The B, redundancy. Data redundancy is defined as the storing of the same data in multiple locations. Look at this database table where you have data in multiple locations. It is redundancy. Like here, we have ICT here, we have ICT here, biology here, and biology here. It's redundancy here. For the name, teacher's name, we have Stefan here, also Stefan here, you have Laura here, you have Laura here. For the phone numbers, they're also repeating. So that is known as redundancy. But what is a query? A query refers to the action of retrieving data from your database. So when you want to retrieve data from a database, it is a query statement you are sending into that table. Usually you will be selective with how much data you want to return. Consider this table, this is our student table. If you write a query, an SQL query of select star from student, that is select all from this student table, where address equals boundary. So when you come on this table to select everything, where address equals boundary, this is where address equals boundary, it will select all of this record. This is what we have here. The record is here. So from this statement where address equals boundary, it takes all the record and it comes out here. So here is the result of the query. Romans 2, describe one method of data validation and one method of data verification in a database. Okay, talking about validation. Validation is a process whereby the data entered in the database is checked to make sure that it is accurate. The simplest kind of data validation is to enter data in accordance with the data type defined by the database designer, such as the integer, float, string, and whatsoever. So when you come here, like for example, you have here the data type of this attribute. For the teacher's ID, you have here the integer. The teacher's name, you have a varchar, that's a character. So when they say teacher's ID, integer, enter an integer number here. Don't go and enter a character, it will not go. So that is an example of validation in accordance with what has been put in place as data type. You enter your data. For verification, verification is performed to ensure that the data entered exactly matches the original source. There are two types. You have double entry. Double entry is when you want to maybe create an email account or you want to change your password. You always be asked to enter the original password, to enter the new password twice. When you're entering a new password type, it's a form of verification to make sure that it matches. Or when you're creating your email account, you have to enter your password twice to make sure that the passwords are the same. An example will be when creating a new password, you are often asked to enter the password twice. This lets the computer verify that data entry is exact. Data entry that data and the data entered is exactly the same. Yeah, that the data entered is exactly the same for both instances, and that no error has been committed. You also have proofreading data. This method involves someone checking the data entered against the original document. Like you have typed a certain document on your computer, then somebody will come with the hard copy or another soft copy to verify if the two data, the one entered and the one on the original copy, are the same. Okay, Romans 3. Creation and spreading of virus is a computer crime which is aimed at doing harm to a computer system. A. Describe any two ways in which we can limit or eradicate the spreading of viruses. The two ways you are use a more secure operating system like Linux operating system or the Apple operating system. Yes, these two systems like this, they are very secure. They are so secure than the Windows operating system. There is what we call the kernel of an operating system, which is the core of the operating system that controls all the activities of a computer. So with this Linux and the Apple operating system, the kernel is extremely secure. That it is so closed up that all these virus things cannot attack. But with Windows operating system, they are not. The kernel is not so secure. That's why we install all these stuff to manage our data. Okay, install an antivirus software and keep them up to date, or keep the operating system up to date. Never open email attachment that contain executable files. Yeah, that's very important. B. State and describe another computer crime that is common in Cameroon. Oh, what is common in Cameroon is coming now. Cameroonians are good scammers, not only Cameroonians in Africa, even good scammers. They will just call for whether they have dogs to sell or they always have things to sell. You know, in Beng, they mostly do this online shopping, and they trust this online shopping so much. Here in our own country, Cameroon, we go to the market or to the shop. We want to see what we are buying. We don't have confidence in our brothers online shopping. They will frappe you. So when you call for a Bengis and you present him something that he wants, as they like, but I know this camera, they like saying dogs. I don't know what they're seeing with these dogs and monkeys. They like those type of stupid things. So when uh, you call for them, you say you want to sell your dog or want to sell you show some images of dogs or some images of some type of things that these Oyibo people like. You present it to them. When you present it to them, they'll feel that the thing is so true, and they will just send you the money. You just take and you just close everything, close all form of communication and stay quiet. You even go and throw the computer. Because the money that they send to you is too much. So this coming here, it's purple. Our boys here, they are even girls, they know that one. So describe a suitable method by which the crime can be controlled. Oh, to control this type of thing in Cameroon, it's not easy because we don't have internet police or internet gendarmes or internet bees to shoot your head. To control this type of stuff, you just to be careful. Or when they call for you, try to spot the person. That is, know the person's address, the person's location. But try to be sure, try to identify the person. You do so much online research on the good, on what the person is saying. Be sure of all those stuff, and you talk to people to make sure to have ideas now on the issue, on the product they want to sell to you. If not, they will frappe you. They will touch you very well. Uh, Romans 4a. Name two types of RAMs. Yeah, we have the static RAM and the dynamic RAM. This one is closer to the CPU. The static RAM is closer to the CPU than the dynamic RAM. This one mostly act as a cache or a register. Next one, the B part of the Romans 4. Explain how an increase in RAM leads to better performance of a computer. Yes, I've just made notes here. To get this answer, there are so many things you need to understand, because if you just go directly and say that you increase the speed because of that, no. You have to first of all understand what is swapping, what is virtual memory, and what is multitasking. Okay, let's start with this first one. Explain the function of RAM in the computer system. The function of RAM in the computer system is just that before the CPU executes an instruction, all those instructions must pass through the RAM. Yes, all the instruction, be it from which part of the computer, which component of the computer, hard disk drive, input and output devices, all those instructions must pass through the RAM before it goes to the CPU. Explain what happens when there is not enough RAM, or where there is not enough RAM to store all the required data. Okay, when there is not enough RAM to store the required instructions to be sent to the CPU, what happens is this: your hard disk, a space will be created in your hard disk drive known as the virtual memory. So a virtual space now will be created on your hard disk drive. Files that are not so, because within the RAM you have memory addresses to be sent to the CPU for execution. Those that are far behind that are not supposed to be sent at a certain time t, that will be sent later. They'll be swapped out of the RAM into what? The virtual memory, to create space in that RAM. So there's a swapping out. And when those programs now will be needed for execution, they will be swapped in to the RAM for execution. So this issue of now, when you increase, like you said, explain how inserting more RAM in a computer affects its performance. When you increase your RAM, this is what happens. There will be no virtual memory again. So the time to be swapping in and out will be cancelled. So your computer now will increase, you have an increase in performance, and that will lead to what we call multitasking. You have seen that? Multitasking. Let's just read these things. RAM is used to hold the operating system, program instruction, and data currently being used by the CPU. When a program is loaded from the hard disk drive, the program instructions are copied into the RAM. Explain what happens when there is not enough RAM to store all the required data. When the RAM is full, the operating system will swap out some of the data to a file on the hard disk drive. This is referred to as the virtual memory. Usually, the least recently used page is swapped out. If a page is swapped out and then is refreshed, that is, you want it wants to be processed by the CPU, it is swapped back in from a swap area at the expense of another page. Explain how inserting more RAM in a computer affects its performance. With more RAM, more of the program instruction can be loaded, and there is less need to keep swapping data in and out to the swap file on the hard disk drive. The constant swapping of data slows down the speed of which application can run. So increasing RAM will increase the speed of the operation of the computer. An increase in RAM will improve multitasking capabilities of the computer, as the instruction of several programs will be able to be stored in the RAM at the same time. Explaining this answer, you have to talk about virtual memory, swapping in and out, and talking about multitasking. Good. Explain how increasing the amount of RAM in a computer affects its performance. Good. If there is more RAM, then more program instruction and data can be stored. The programs will run faster, and there will be less use of virtual memory. The computer will be able to multitask more programs. And the last question: give any three differences between ROM and CMOS in terms of their content. Yeah, this is what we call ROM. If you look on the computer, on your motherboard, this is what we call ROM, and this is what we call the complementary of the semiconductor. It's a battery found on your motherboard. This one, the read-only memory. So this one that it contains, when you talk about the content, it contains what we call the BIOS. And the BIOS also does what we call the post. So the BIOS is a firmware that whenever you power on your computer, it must be executed before the operating system is loaded on your RAM. So contains the BIOS, which is a non-volatile firmware used to perform hardware initialization during the booting process. That is the power on self-test. When it starts, this is what happens when this BIOS will go and check if all the devices are well connected to your computer, or if they are connected, it will check if the mouse is connected, check if the keyboard is connected, check if the hard disk is there. So all those activities are performed by the BIOS stored where in the ROM. Then the configuration of this BIOS are stored in the CMOS. There's a difference here. The configuration of all these processes here are stored in the CMOS. So that's its own content. CMOS is a special memory chip that stores and retains the BIOS configuration settings. Programs of firmware for the ROM, programs of firmware never change. That is, they are non-volatile. Whereas stores changeable program like system, date, and time. That is, they are volatile. They are volatile. You can change your system, date, and time, so they are not fixed. Yeah? They are volatile. For example, when these are batteries like this is down, whenever you turn on your computer, you have a new date and time. When you turn it off and turn it back on, it has a new date and time because the battery is down, so it is not permanent. The BIOS firmware comes pre-installed on your personal computer's system board and is the first software run when powered on. Meanwhile, this stores boot up information of hardware, PC component, and even CMOS password. That's a system password. Without this password, if you configure this password and you don't know the password, you will not your computer operating system will not be loaded. You will not reach at the point of the desktop. So the operating system will not be loaded. It prevents you until you put that password. The bootable order can be reorganized and password can be altered. So it is not like preloaded like this one, which cannot be changed. These ones can be changed. So thanks for watching. Make sure you click on the like and you subscribe to my channel. God bless you and have a nice time.